people in your generation are much more comfortable with many people who are not like them. So there are people who are not white who also display racism?
Racism is not specific to one race. I don't even know how that narrative started to exist.
Dealt with a lot of racial slurs thrown at me. And then on social media, I've seen a lot of global warming issues and posts of how we can make the world better and slow down global warming.
Mm-hmm. So let's take the racism piece. So slurs from people who, like random people or?
Random people in grocery stores, on the road, co-workers, customers, and students.
Really? So people who don't know you are saying things to you?
Yes.
Do they have a reason to? Has there ever been a situation when they have a reason to? Like, first off, let me just say, like, okay, this isn't because I'm a white guy, okay? Because I teach this class, so obviously, right? But like, you do understand it's hard when someone doesn't have an up close personal view of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to say, like, really, like seriously. So just can you say a little more? Like, what people just come up and they just say stuff, or they yell stuff at you, or
they mostly just yell and stare and give you weird glares.
Okay, first and foremost, before we get too deep, this is a student, so don't be too hard on this student because she is in college. This is a college class. Don't be too hard on her. But I will say I don't think I can. I'm not gonna say agree because agree is the wrong word. I don't believe her. That's probably the best word. I don't think people just come up to you and say racial slurs. Maybe I'm not understanding the context in which she's saying this, but from what she just said, she said that people will come up to her. They say racist things to her. I don't think that happens in like 99% of situations, but maybe I don't understand the context, but let's continue.
It's very uncomfortable being a person of color and being different.
In Snyder County. You live in a small town?
Yes. I live in Selinsgrove, PA.
Oh, dude, Selinsgrove. Okay. All right. Okay. And so it's mostly, is there a growing Mexican community there? Or community of immigrants?
It has been declining.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So it grew like Hazleton and certain ones, and then it started to decline.
Yeah. When I was younger, there was a lot more families. Currently, I think there's 7-8 families that are of Hispanic heritage.
So the racism for you is something that's really there in your direct life experience.
Yeah.
You would call this racism, like when people are saying slurs.
So she is from a small town, but that kind of would beg the question even more, because if it's a small town, is the whole town just racist against you? Because it's not that many people there. So is everyone just super racist? But I've never heard of the town, Selinsville. If anyone's from there, let me know what it's like. But I still kind of find it hard to believe that you're just walking down the street and somebody comes up to you and like just starts calling you names. It could happen though. I'm not gonna like say like, oh, she's lying. It could possibly happen, but I just don't. Maybe if it was like the 1950s, but I don't see that happening in this year. But I don't know.
And so on to you.
Yes.
How do you respond?
I get uncomfortable, but just ignore it. It's better to just keep going instead of trying to argue with them because they're so close-minded.
Mm-hmm. So keep going, but you keep going with that inside of you, right? Because it's in you.
Yeah.
Okay, so where else do you see? So racism is an issue.
Yes.
And so there are many, like we have this idea that people in your generation are much more comfortable with many people who are not like them. By the way, we're not talking just white people here, right?
Yeah.
We might be in your case, but it's not like black and brown people aren't racist
Oh, yeah.
or bigoted, whatever. We'll go into that later, however you want to say it. So there are people who are not white who also display racism that you see?
Yeah, funny enough, one time I was called a Mexican racial slur by a Puerto Rican.
Really?
Yeah.
Puerto Ricans, what's up with that?
Yeah, so I definitely do see that racism is not specific to one race. I don't even know how that narrative started to exist, because when you really think about it, that narrative makes no sense. When they only say only white people can be racist, that literally doesn't make sense. It contradicts the definition of racism. But I digress. I still kind of find it hard to believe that you're walking down the street on multiple occasions and somebody just walks up to you, and they do it so often that it's a definitive part of your life, and they just start chanting racial slurs. I'm not saying I don't agree with that racism exists, because racism obviously exists. If you dislike another race, that's racism. But you're walking down the street in your town, and no matter what, you just walk outside, and it's just so common that you're used to it. It's really hard to believe. But maybe this is, a super racist town. I don't know exactly where she's from. I've never heard of it. It could be. I don't know. But in day-to-day life, that just doesn't happen.
Where else do you see racism? So this is one of your two pieces here. Where else do you see racism?
I've seen it a lot on, well, it's no longer that much on social media, but every so often it'll show up. And you would think that since nowadays we're supposed to be more progressive, you wouldn't see as much, but it still happens on social media.
Okay. So climate change.
Yes.
That's the second thing that you said. So what's the problem? The problem is climate change. What do you see?
The ozone weakening. We're running out of materials and resources.
So what I'm assuming is, because we're kind of further into the video, that Dr. Richards called her up to the front and asked her, what are the two biggest problems that you see in America? And the first problem she brought up was racism, and the second one was climate change, as she stated. But my thing is, her definitions of racism that she's faced is when she walks down the street and she gets called terms or she gets disrespected. And I'm not saying that's false. I don't personally believe it happened, but I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, she's lying, because I don't know where she's from. It could very well be her reality. Like, I've heard crazier things. So that could be where she's from. That could be her reality. My problem is that it's not the average person's reality in America. What do I mean by that? The average person doesn't walk outside of their home. I don't care if they're in a white neighborhood, a black neighborhood, a Hispanic neighborhood, an indigenous neighborhood. It doesn't matter. They don't just walk out of their house in America in 2024 and just hear racial slurs. That is not the average person's life. That's not most people's lives. So for you to use your personal experiences, whether they are true or not, they aren't common. So that's not really a good example of a big problem in the United States, in my opinion. So that whole racism being the biggest problem that you think America could fix, you could think that. However, using your personal livelihood, when you live in such a very specific circumstance that is not common at all, is probably not the best approach if you want to convince people. But anyways, let's continue.
The population is growing faster than the world can handle.
Then the planet can handle with the resources.
And animals are going extinct a lot faster.
Okay, I don't really know much about the climate stuff, so I'm not going to continue too deep into this video. I just kind of wanted to focus on how she said racism is the biggest problem, and she used her personal life experiences to, I guess, I wouldn't say prove, but justify her reasoning. And I'm just here to say, and I don't want anyone bashing her, because this very well could be her life. She walks outside and she probably does get attacked on a day-to-day, and then she comes on YouTube and she's getting attacked again. That's not the goal here. The goal is saying, if that is your personal life, that doesn't mean it's the average person's personal life. The average person doesn't walk outside and get verbally attacked by white people on a day-to-day. It doesn't happen. It's. I don't think I've ever seen it happen, if I'm being honest. Not even on social media, I don't think I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in a movie before. Several movies, I've seen it. But in modern society, this does not happen. And if it happens to you, I am very sorry. But that is not the average person's life. And I'm darker than you. I'm going to tell you straight up. That's not what happens when you go outside. And I think I would know. I think I would know. But anyways, if you have any suggestions for me, comment down below. Subscribe to Dr. Richard's channel, Social 119, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.